If you're looking for a good movie this summer, I'd commend to you Father Stu, and in this episode, I want to tell you a little bit about it. Stay tuned. Hello, friends. Pastor Tim Westermeyer here, Senior Pastor of St. Philip Deacon in the western suburbs of Minneapolis. Good to be with you as always. We are filming this in the middle of July. Last episode was on a book recommendation for your summer reading pleasure. And today I want to talk a little bit about a movie that I actually just saw the night before we're taping this. This is a movie that came out in April of this year. Maybe some of you have seen it. I'm thinking back on all the episodes we've done here. I don't think I've done a commentary about a movie in this space. If I have, you can remind me maybe. But the movie I'm talking about is Father Stu. And I'm not intending to do any spoilers here, but on the off chance that I might, if you're looking ahead or looking forward to watching it, maybe you should hit the pause button now, watch the movie, and then come back and listen to my reflections. But I want to lift up three lessons, let's call them, or three reactions to this movie, which is, if you don't know, it's the true story or based on the true story of an actual Catholic priest named Stu Long. He died in 2014 when he was, I believe he was 50 years old, of a rare condition called inclusion body myositis. I hope I just said that right. And Mark Wahlberg, who is himself a devout and practicing Catholic, heard about Father Stu's real life story and has been on a mission, I think, for the last 8 or 10 years now to make this movie about this gentleman. So I really liked the movie. I will tell you, if you're not a fan of swearing, there's a fair amount of swearing that goes on in the movie, so maybe just be warned. But I thought it was a really good movie. And again, I want to lift up three of my reactions to it. The first is that it helps to remind us that faith is true. What do I mean by that? Well, I've used the word in this space before, caricature, sometimes in the context of how I think we inadvertently read the Bible. We read the Bible as sort of with caricatures of the individuals, of cardboard cutouts, rather than three-dimensional, fully embodied human beings that we're reading about. I would say that by and large, Hollywood, when it presents people from the church, people like me, frankly, pastors or the church broadly, it more often than not presents caricatures of the church. In this movie, I thought Wahlberg and the producers and directors did a really good job of presenting an honest, sympathetic, charitable assessment of priests and of church life, which doesn't mean that they presented those individuals as perfect. Far from it. They presented them as human beings with their own struggles and so forth. So I really appreciated that, and as a result of that, I felt like the movie had, I'll call it the ring of truth about it. And just maybe on that same note, I will say there's a novel written a number of years ago by Marilynne Robinson, one of my favorite authors, named Gilead, which is loved, I think, by a lot of pastors, actually. One of the reasons pastors love the book is that also writes about a pastor in a sympathetic, charitable, honest way rather than as a caricature. So that's the first thing. Second thing, this movie absolutely reminds us that suffering is part of life. And suffering is one of the hardest questions to deal with as Christians. And I'm not saying this movie answers all those questions, but I think it addresses them, certainly honestly, in the sense that it addresses them as Father Stu, the actual Catholic priest, understood his own suffering, which was profound and great in his own lifetime. There's a quote from the movie. This is from the actual the words of the movie itself. What do you call that, Tim? The screenplay of the movie. Thank you. So I don't know if this is actually a quote from Father Stu, but it's from the screenplay. Here's what the screenplay says. This is out of the mouth of Father Stu. My suffering is a gift from God. Let me say that again. My suffering is a gift from God. In this life, no matter how long it lasts, it's a momentary affliction preparing us for eternal glory. Again, I'm not going to answer all the questions about suffering in this episode, but that is a very particular approach to understanding suffering, that it is a gift and that we have something to learn from it, rather than suffering being something that we can somehow avoid in this lifetime, which is, I think, actually not possible. And let me just read to further underscore this point about suffering, which is a central theme of the movie. These are the words now from Father Stu himself. They actually play a quote including these words at the end of the movie. He's talking, he ends up dying at the age of 50 from this very rare disorder, muscle disorder. And here's what he says before his death. It's a very curious experience, because through the difficulties and the struggles that I've been through, the problems that have arisen from this, and the people, especially my dad, who have come to my side to support me and aid me, and assist me through this life since I've been diagnosed with this, it's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. It's helped me overcome some of my prideful ways, which were a big cross for me for many years. It's taught me a little humility. It taught me dignity and respect for others, especially for those who share the condition I'm in. So again, I'm just lifting up, it's honest about suffering, and it presents one individual responding to that suffering and viewing it not as a burden, but as a gift. So I lift that up here. Final thing, and this is maybe not the main point of the movie, but I took away at least this partially from the movie, which is that God is inviting each of us on a grand adventure in this lifetime. One of the quotes from the movie pointing to the next life, to the afterlife, to heaven, is, what if the unknown is greater than we can possibly imagine, right? So there's this sense, and that's a very Christian intuition, that we are journeying in a foreign land, we're pilgrims in a foreign land, on our way to our true home, which again is referred to as the unknown here. And what if it's better or greater than we can possibly imagine? I think maybe it's a tautology, but anyway, the other related quote is, and this is again out of the mouth of Father Stu, and I love this: we shouldn't pray for an easy life, but the strength to endure a difficult one. And again, I think in that quote is a sense of perspective, recognizing that in this world, which is not our true home, right, which is fallen and broken and messed up in terms of our relationships with ourselves, with our loved ones, with the God who always loves us, life is going to be difficult. And rather than try to avoid that, maybe our call to adventure is to work through that challenge, work through that difficulty, and ask God to give us the strength precisely to do that. Again, I thought the movie was really wonderful. I commend it to you. If you've seen it, I'd love to know your thoughts about it below. If you eventually watch it and want to come back and add your thoughts, great. And as I mentioned with that summer read episode last week, if there's a movie you would like to recommend, could you pass it on in the comments below as well? I know that people will appreciate it. Thanks as always for being with me. Be well, stay in touch, and God bless. One thing I forgot to mention is that there's a great and short interview between Mark Wahlberg and Bishop Robert Barron specifically about the movie Father Stu. If you'd like to check that out, we'll provide a link to it in the upper right-hand corner.